One second.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we are recording. So go ahead.
Great. Well, welcome all this Thursday, January 21st, 2021 meeting of the Salary Commission shall come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Poston,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I was having problems on another meeting. I apologize. So Commissioner Poston,
Yes.
okay, Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Ben,
Here.
Commissioner McManus,
Here.
and Commissioner Chair Hampton.
Present. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You.
It looks like we've got several action items on our calendar for today. The first being the oath of office, and I'm going to defer over to Miss Anya to explain why that's on the agenda.
So we have, and I'm gonna turn it over to Kelly. We've got a new member that needs to do oath of office. And then we have Commissioner Bennett that is getting reappointed. So Kelly, take it away.
All right, Anya, can I ask you to give me permission to share my screen? And it's that little arrow right next to share screen and say allow multiple. If you see that,
Oh, hold on.
the little arrow right next to the share screen at the bottom, like a tiny little white arrow.
Green button.
Yeah, I don't either.
We don't see a share screen button. Hold on.
Even when you put your cursor down below, okay.
Hold on. Let me change my view.
Oh, that's nice.
Sorry, technical difficulties. I'm not used to being the host.
Well, while we're working out the technical difficulties, I'd like to welcome the members of the public who have joined us and specifically recognize City Council member Gary Petershagen, who's with us tonight. So thank you for being with us, Gary.
All right, you know, that's okay, Anya, I'll just go without it.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a share screen option. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so if I can get Commissioner Bennett and Poston to raise their right hand and repeat after me, and I'll try to go as slow as I can. So I state your name,
I, Ford
I-
Poston,
Carolyn Bennett,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or
affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and state of Washington
and state of Washington
and the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
and the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of salary commissioner. I'll say that again. Perform and discharge the duties of salary commissioner
perform and discharge
the
salary.
duties of salary commissioner
Perfect. The duties of salary commissioner. And okay. And then according to the law
according to the law,
and to the best of my ability and understanding.
to the best
of
my
my ability and understanding.
Congratulations. Thanks, guys. I was going to have it up on the screen. It would have been a little bit easier. So I apologize for that, but you did great.
No problem.
Good job.
Unfortunately, I may not be able to stay for the whole meeting. So I may turn my video off here in a minute, but that's all I've got for you tonight. So take it away.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. First of all, I want to say welcome to Ford. This is your first meeting, and welcome to the frying pan, because this will be a good one. And second, welcome again to Carolyn Bennett. We're glad you're with us. All right.
Thank you.
Action item B is to elect a chairperson for 2020. So I was speaking with Anya, and apparently it is the norm at the new year, even though we only started last October, November, to go ahead and elect a chairperson for that particular calendar year. So Anya, I'll let you take it from here.
So what we'll do is just take some nominations if you want to nominate anybody for chairperson, and and then we'll go from there. Does anybody have any nominations?
I nominate Michelle Hampton.
I'll second that nomination for Michelle Hampton.
Okay, Michelle, does anybody have any other nominations besides Michelle? Hearing none. Michelle, do you accept the nomination?
I do. Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve Michelle Hampton as Chair of the 2021 Salary Commission.
A
I
second?
second that motion.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and approved. And Michelle, congratulations.
Well, thank
Chairperson
you.
2021, and you can just continue taking her away
We'll
for this
just
meeting.
continue. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Formalities, you know.
Speech.
Okay, so the next action item on our list is the approval of the December 2nd, 2020 minutes from our meeting. I presume we've all had opportunity to go over them. Is there anything that needs to be discussed, clarified, or corrected?
I had a question on page 2 where in the middle of that paragraph, it states, Commissioner McManus said the mayor already received 535% raise. Was that an accurate print there?
That was the notes that I took from the meeting.
Okay.
Karen,
Yeah,
Just-
I think that was the all-in raise if it was at the number that they had projected from the city. So I think that might have been a mistake.
So would you like that stricken or?
Yeah,
Brian, I thought what you had said was compared to the part-time salary, the full-time salary that had already been enacted would have been a 535% raise.
yeah, that's exactly what I said. But I think the 535 was actually at the rate the city had projected, which was around, I think, 122, or the council had original
Okay,
paperwork.
so that
I can't
was-
remember the exact figure, but so that's percentage is off.
Okay, so it's a little overstated there.
Correct.
Okay.
How would you like to correct that?
Would you like to delete it? Would you like to delete that statement, or since it was your statement, how would you like the minutes to be reflected?
Well, let's see here. Trying to figure out the percentage difference. I mean, if we can get an accurate percentage, I'm just not that fast at math, to be quite honest with you, between the 24 or 25,000 and the 80,000.
Or would you like it to say that the mayor was projected to receive a 535% raise?
Yeah, recommendation. I think this recommendation from council, right, was the original recommendation they rolled out to us was about 535% from the part-time salary.
I think you're correct. If memory serves.
Yeah,
So.
but we can either amend it that way, Anya, or change the percentage to reflect the part-time salary to the $80,000 salary.
Well, I'm not gonna do the math. Can you do the math?
I think it should be as he stated it though at the meeting. Similar.
Yeah, I'm not that good at math.
Okay, so then let's change the language to say as projected and presented to the commission.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make that change before any signatures.
okay.
Thanks, Anya.
Was there any other comment, inquiry, or correction on the minutes from December 2nd? Anyone? Okay.
Um,
Seeing none, I will request that Ms. Anya please update and correct and amend those minutes so that they can thereafter be approved.
I think we can approve it with the noted amendment though.
Okay.
Here now, do a motion to.
All right, so she will amend it as we just indicated, but we will need a motion to approve it as amended.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Hearing none, unanimous agreement.
Who was the second on that?
Carolyn,
I
Commissioner
think it was
McManus,
Ford. Sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Commissioner Poston?
Yeah.
Yes, seconded.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
he seconded, yeah.
okay. So the reason we're here tonight, moving from action items, does anyone else have an action item that was not on the agenda?
Nope.
Okay, then we will go ahead and move on to new business. The reason that we are here tonight is because City Council summoned us back to review our thinking, thoughts, and determination with regard to the mayor's now full-time salary. So, just by way of a recap, what happened was we met 3-4 times last year. We were all there except for Ford, so I'm catching you up. And I believe we all put in an earnest effort. We reviewed the information that was provided to us. And I think we had some very thoughtful conversation about not only the information that we were taking in and reviewing, but also about who we are as Lake Stevens, our goals, our concerns, and that kind of thing. We came to a conclusion. It was processed appropriately per the code. And apparently our city council was displeased with our conclusion. At that point, they had a meeting, I believe it was Tuesday, December 1st, where they introduced ordinance 1107. That ordinance would have essentially taken away the ability of salary commission to determine the salary for the mayor. Specifically under the ordinance, there was one whereas, which is particularly poignant, which I will read, that says, whereas the city council has determined that it, meaning city council, is in a better position to determine the appropriate compensation of the mayor rather than the appointed salary commission under chapter 2.51 LSMC, and it goes on, claiming to say that because we have no direct oversight and we meet on a limited basis. That was what was put forth. At that city council meeting, they determined not to go forward with ordinance 1107, but to table it, at least for the moment, and to recall us now to, as they say, reconsider what we want to do in terms of what the mayor's salary should be. So here we are. We had some discussion at our last meeting about whether we believed we should hold firm or have further discussion. And I think now is the time, since we've all received the packet, had time to go over it again with fresh eyes. I would like to hear from each commissioner as to your thoughts as to what should be done or not be done at this point. So who wants to lead off? If you don't volunteer, I'll just call on you.
I'll be happy to leave.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn.
Sure. So I just wanted to say, Anya and Kelly, thank you for this packet. It's really the information I was looking for. And I think many of us on the commission were hoping to get information regarding kind of an expanded position description, which was really helpful. And then information on just salaries of various staff members of the city. And so, and employees of the city. So thank you again for that. I did have a question regarding the first page of the packet where it says under the background section, it says in that third paragraph that during the review of the mayor's benefit package in the beginning of December, City council discussed the salary level established by the salary commission, was concerned the salary determined was not in line with their anticipated figure and what was budgeted. And my question is, did we get a document or a section of the budget where it clearly states what was budgeted?
No, we had a presentation from the gentleman, forgive me, I forget his name.
Finance person from the city, yeah.
Right.
From the city with their projection
Mhm.
based on purely their projection.
Sure.
It was that person from the city did not really, other than taking questions that we had at the time, did not enter into our, several meetings long conversation of how this all works for us as Lake Stevens.
Mhm. So we, and as I recall, I remember that meeting, but we did not get provided a forecasted budget number for the mayor position, mayor salary. Is that correct?
Well, as my memory serves, and everybody else, please chime in if I'm not remembering correctly. It was round about 100 to somewhere between 100, 140. And then the part that was not necessarily quantified was the benefits package, which has to be determined, I believe, by council anyway, because it doesn't deal with just raw numbers that we would have jurisdiction over.
That's what my notes reflect as well. So was 100,000 plus 40% for benefit package. Okay.
I remember that being a different number, and I'm gonna try and find it, guys, because I thought it was more like around 122, roughly. I guess if I can
That's
find that.
definitely in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think Brian's a little closer. I mean, I can try to look it up while we're discussing, but if that's something that you'd like, if we're gonna have another meeting, I can get that information from our finance and get the number. You were provided with that budget forecast
Mhm.
the very first meeting that showed once they use that number to project, it showed the forecast with the projection in there. And then
Okay.
the presentation. So.
And hey, Anya, really fast, didn't it show that where the city would go into a deficit as a result of the new salary that they had? For some reason, I remember that from my notes, but
Yes, I remember it as well.
What the forecast shows is us hitting our 10% reserve line, and it shows us hitting that line slightly sooner with that salary.
okay.
Right. So I think, and if Anya, if you can help me out, or if anybody else has those dates right to hand, going into and dipping under our 10% required reserve is slated to happen within, I believe, the next 2 years, which 2 years is about 10 minutes as fast as things happen. So, we want to be prudent. We want to be reasonable. At the same time, we want to be appropriate with what we say the mayor should make as a salary. We certainly don't want to disrespect the office by doing something that would be inappropriate. And that is a hard balancing act when you're looking at hard numbers that say, if we go down this projected revenue stream or lack thereof, we will be under our 10% required reserve in very, very short order. Unless something crazy drastic happens and all of a sudden we get a lot more commercial business coming into the area, which we all would like to have happen, but let's remember we're in the middle of a pandemic. And as much as we all want it to go away and have high hopes for the vaccines, we have no guarantee of any timeline.
So I would just, understood, Commissioner Hampton, thank you very much. Completely understood and well noted. I had made some comments at our last meeting just regarding my perspective And I want to just recap. I have about 4 bullets. I just want to recap. I'd like us to remember to take the long view here, not just with the current situation that's fluid with the pandemic. The pandemic's going to be not forever. And as our city is dynamic and ever changing, our growth is imminent, and it's happening now, obviously. We're an attractive city with growing pains. We're working hard to meet the needs of 30 to 35,000 residents. And per Anya on 12.2, our salary should be based on expectations for our mayor and not performance. That was in writing at our meeting in our packet in December. Correction, let me clarify. That was a note that I had taken, but Anya, you had shared that, I believe. And then for the past few years, I witnessed both Mayor Spencer's and Mayor Gailey's just incredibly hard work in our city. And I think that's echoed on this extended position description, which is elaborated and helps for everybody, I think, on the commission, that what we're seeing isn't just on paper and on social media and in the news. It's definitely firsthand information, I think, that I'm seeing our mayor, whoever that may be in the future, just work incredibly hard for the citizens of Lake Stevens. So with that, I would conclude my comments. Thank you very much.
Carolyn, do you have a personal opinion about whether or not you like where we landed, or you would like an adjustment?
My opinion would be that we stay right at 100,000. And I think that it might be helpful to also have some input from council as to, do we have an idea of what range they were really kind of hoping for us to work toward? Or do we just have that it was, just go back to the drawing board? Do we have any information?
So Commissioner Bennett, I did actually find my notes from when Finance gave us their presentation and the impact on the budget. And they were using a projection of salary of 118,636 with a full benefit impact of 170,091. So that I knew we were like right around that 120 mark. I just couldn't remember where it was. So that's the numbers that Finance plugged in to project how it would impact the budget.
And I had taken notes that I think I'd seen that in my notes as well. Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Dixie, what do you think? We're just going to go round robin. I'd like everybody to input with what they have looked at, thought about, concerned about, happy with. So your thoughts and whether or not you think we need to make any adjustment.
So again, I just want to thank Anya and Kelly for this information. I think that this is the information we received today is definitely a lot more insight on what the position itself actually is and what is expected of that position. I feel personally, after looking through all the documentation, seeing everything that we were presented, that I do believe we need to reevaluate our prior decision. I do think that after, like Commissioner Bennett did say, there are a lot of things that maybe we didn't see in the beginning as far as what the requirements are, what the expectations are. Not only that, but what the position actually is going to be doing for the city. So my recommendation is to reevaluate our initial decision of 80,000.
Okay, and where would you land? What seems right to you?
I've been studying this since we received them, and my recommendation would be that we're roughly right about around 105. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. Any other thoughts? No? I'm sorry, if you responded, I couldn't hear you.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ford, I'm going to leave you last just because you haven't been involved in the conversations before, but I'm going to get to you next after Brian, okay?
No problem.
Thanks. So Brian, now it's your turn. What do you think? Has a review of documents changed your mind at all? Should we stand firm or do we reevaluate?
Well, I mean, I lean towards reevaluation and for several reasons, actually. I really wish we would have had this type of extensive information the first go around, because I think we would have all landed probably around the same spot, honestly. This is the kind of information we needed initially that we didn't have to make the decision back in November. So I had extensive conversation with the mayor, really kind of got into what he sees as the challenges and some of the things in the future. And, not really a justification conversation, but more of just share with me why, this is validating. Give me something to bullet points to go off of. So we had a long conversation. Gene Brazil was there. He chimed in with a lot of it. So between that conversation and understanding some of the complexities that are inherent with even going to a full-time mayor role, right, and kind of changing that and roles, responsibilities, and then looking at the salary comps from some of the cities that are a little bit more fleshed out for us, and really looking at the salary comps internal to the city, right, for like public works, city administrator. I leave the legal ones out because there's always a little bit high, but at police chief and so on. I think it's time to reevaluate it. My recommendation would be we land him, which kind of falls into where their numbers are, but I would put him at between 108 to 110,000 salary, and that doesn't push us. It's still going to hit us on the curve, not as early in the deficit that we have, and that gives us time. I think they were projecting that dip into the general fund, I think for 2026, but that's if everything goes well, right? So if Costco actually gets built and things are resolved on 20th with some of the issues of development there. But I think with looking at it from a different lens and actually having this information provided, obviously we don't want our mayor to be underpaid. Nobody wants that. It's going to be a hard sell with the general population, I think, the citizens, because it's just, it's new, right? And anything that's new, there's going to get pushback on that. So, but after a review of the salaries and the conversations I had, I would say, I'd be very comfortable at 108, 110 to make it a round number if you want, but I think that combined with the benefits package that would have to be tagged onto that would be a sustainable number for the city, at least in the coming year. And then, like I said, we're going to meet annually. And if things are going well and the cost goes in and things are running and we have different numbers to work from, and that's not a performance issue for the mayor. That's more of, are we getting there? And is the revenue going to support it so that by 2026, we don't drop into that general fund if we can avoid it, right? No one has a crystal ball. We don't know when this pandemic's going to end. I think it goes back to a common sense approach. So when you look at the data we've been given and you do the salary comps with some of the like-sized cities, some of the complexities of running this city and the growth challenges we face, I think that's my recommendation. I think we should review and land around 108 to 110. So not far off from Dixie and Carolyn, really.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, Ford, you're up. What are your thoughts? I know you've looked at the documents and probably chewed on them a bit. So what do you think?
Pretty comprehensive, a lot of information there. So a couple things that come to mind, and part of this is just trying to get some more background here. But the first thing that I thought about was, I know the description says full-time position, but does that literally mean 40 hours a week as far as the mayor's responsibilities typically? Is that, what does that look like as far as his time commitment on a typical, weekly, monthly basis?
Okay. I know at least at this point in time, I will tell you that our mayor is running ragged and he is busting his backside, spending all kinds of hours trying to do things for our city, particularly in this time of pandemic. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we are able now to dig out some of the egress areas so that the lake can come in and go out instead of just come in and be stopped up, which is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been doing all kinds of things. I know he's had many meetings with liaisons in Olympia, and gaining monies for our city. Really and truly, I think he's doing a stellar job right now, particularly in light of the craziness in the world with the pandemic and how everything is being handled. So I would say in this instance, and I can't say that it will be this way every day, every week, but I think full-time means way more than 40 hours a week at this point.
That's probably true
Well,
of anybody in a salaried role, right? For it.
Right.
And that to me is a pretty important factor. I think sometimes people call things full time, but it might be, you know, a 20-hour a week commitment or 25. But I mean, if he's working 40 plus, then yeah, I think that's definitely something to factor in.
Ford, if you wouldn't mind, I just feel the need to jump in because I'm probably the closest to his schedule out of anybody in the city, helping him to schedule meetings and trainings and what have you, kind of keeping his schedule. And yes, I can tell you it's a lot more than 40 hours a week. He's up at 6:30 in the morning having meetings with some people, and all the way in through the evening. So I just can vouch for the fact that it's not a 9 to 4 kind of job. Much more than 40 hours a week, typically.
So that makes sense. And I think that's an important factor in kind of looking at this is, I think someone mentioned before is that, you wouldn't want someone to be penalized, especially if this is a truly full-time position, to take a job where, I think there's a lot of people who might say, at a certain range, this works. And at another range, I don't know if I'd be able to afford to take this on. So that I think the time commitment definitely factors in. The other thing, this might be more of a background question. I know the list gives a pretty detailed, description of different projects that are happening, which I'm assuming will be, will have an impact on city revenue and things like that. I mean, as far as our expectation, and I know this is just an expectation, but I mean, it sounds like, yes, there's some unknowns and uncertainty with the pandemic, but I'm assuming the financial position of the city should be changing for the better over the next, call it, 1, 2, 3 years. Is that a safe assumption?
That depends on how business and the economy does generally. And right now, nobody's got a crystal ball.
What are the basic projections at this point, though, from that perspective?
With the start of a new presidency, and I'm not trying to speak political speak here, I'm just talking reality. I've lived through a few of these cycles myself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what policies are going to be put in place and how they are going to affect the general citizens of, are they going to start businesses? Are they going to hire people? Are they going to fire people? Do they have to downsize? There's so many things. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I just don't.
Yeah.
And, when you compound one thing on top of another, of course, we all hope for the best, but we have no guarantee of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, Ford, sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Are you, I think, at the 118 that they're projecting, if everything goes smoothly and they're adding in Costco revenue and everything and projections,
mm-hmm.
we would go into that general fund, we would dip into it in 2026. So that's attributing to businesses that are going to open. We're not taking into account, kind of to Michelle's point, how many people have lost their jobs or their businesses and now are going to have struggle paying their property taxes, which was part of how we get funded as a city, right? So there's a lot of things that we just don't have an unknown on. So it's kind of your best swag at this point, I think, knowing what we do know, right? And that's where I came to my decision. I don't know if that helps you at all.
So just another way to rephrase that question now maybe. So it sounds like I understand there's a lot of uncertainty there with projecting, especially in this environment, but what's the trajectory been like, say, the last 2 or 3 years? I mean, has it been positive, flat, negative? I mean, what has the city looked like from that perspective, I guess, looking backwards?
Well, looking backwards, we've done a bit better on the commercial side. Of course, there's great anticipation for Costco, but the ink still isn't dry.
Mm-hmm.
We could use 2 or 3 Costcos in different formats, and that would really, really help our city because we are, as you know, predominantly a bedroom community, always have been. And it's a little challenging maybe to build up our commercial side of things so that the sales tax can carry some of the burden off of the homeowners. It's coming. It's coming. If things continue, it's coming. And I don't mean to be gloom and doom. I'm just really a realist and a pragmatist. We don't know.
That makes
So-
sense.
Just one question I have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought during the meeting where the city finances came in and talked to us, the projected that they gave us did not include Costco because we had not had any figures come in from Costco. It was not figured into the projected 6-year budget. So that's one thing I think to take into consideration too. The projection that we did receive from the city council and from the city finance did not include Costco coming in.
That's my recollection as well.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And I don't think it accounted for the upcoming annexation as well.
No, I don't think it took into consideration either one of those. So the projected that the city council, the number they came up with, didn't take into consideration what we could receive or what benefits we could have from Costco or the annexation. So that projected budget where we go under the reserve line by 2026 doesn't include those companies coming in or those other things. So that projected at the time isn't accurate per se, because it doesn't take that into consideration as well.
And I don't know the answer to this, but something to consider too. Did the city give any tax concessions to Costco to build in the city?
there were a lot of concessions made to bring them to the table, which is why, and I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not passing judgment. It just,
Oh, no, we want them here. Just kind of more
Right.
curious. I think.
but the point being is that it's going to take several years before we see positive revenue from that. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, good point. Yes, you were all correct. I don't believe Costco, and Kelly chimed in, Costco was not put into those projections. So that's good. So we've got a cleaner projection without it. And when Costco comes in and it's up and running, then it'll be on the plus side and we'll all be very happy because we don't have to cross the trestle to get to Costco.
That's a good thing.
Ford, other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that I would echo kind of what other people said. So I mean, that helps me kind of understand. And I would say if there's a way to, stay in line with the reserve studies and not go, majorly below, it sounded like everybody was kind of saying somewhere in that average range, which was 1 to 110 seems to, I think it makes sense. And especially if it's affordable, then I don't see why not, especially if the mayor is, working as hard and as many hours as he is. I don't think he should be penalized for taking on this role, especially if it's, critical.
Right. And I don't think anyone ever intended there to be any kind of a penalty. It was just a little bit, it was a bit of a challenge when you vote someone in as a part-time,
Mhm.
and then mid-term, they become full-time. And then you've got to kind of, whoa, all right, let's reevaluate. How are we going to do this? And we did what we did in good faith. I will
Yeah.
say that. We did what we did in good faith. Now it seems we have a little bit more information. And so if we want to, we can make an adjustment. I have a few things to add to the conversation, but I don't want to cut off anyone else who has other thoughts. I want to make sure you're all said what you wanted to say first. Yes.
I'd like to just add one comment, and that is Mayor Gailey and I spoke briefly in October, late October, and his comment to me when I asked him about his time commitment was, his response was, "It's all I do." So just to give another comment direct from him. So I think that's reflective of what I've heard tonight.
Right.
And I think we need to take that into consideration, to Ford's point, but it's also, we have to think about, the next person who may hold office may not be as energetic, right? So, you just got to keep that, you got to keep the role, focus on the role, not necessarily the person in it, right? And, being an elected position, you want to show up, you want to do well. So, I mean, I think he's doing a great job. I really do. It's just that we have to have the responsibility of making sure that, you know, the next person who comes in the office and where they continue and the salary continues to increase as we grow as a city over the years, we got to start somewhere with a baseline, right? And I think now that we have more information, that was my recommendation of why we should reevaluate. And I think you're in line with that too, Carolyn. So,
Agreed.
So this
Okay.
may seem.
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
Court.
One quick follow-up question, Commissioner Hampton. I just, I mean, I'm assuming there will always be a salary commission. So if for some reason, let's say you had a change and, you know, another person comes in, a mayor, they don't do as well of as good of a job, or say they commit 10 hours a week or whatever the case is. I mean, there's always the potential to readjust, correct, in the future. It's not like once this is set, there's no going back. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's provisions in the code for how that would be handled.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
it might
Anybody
kind of be
else?
like trying to rescind a tax though for it at this point. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here are my comments that I submit to you. So first of all, we talked about more people in the city itself as opposed to the UGA by way of annexation, so that we can actually be around the lake. Because right now there's a huge chunk that's just part of the UGA that's not part of the city proper. So annexation is happening, or at least intended to. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Just FYI, annexation costs money. So it's not a freebie. Just put that in the back of your mind. That's all I'm going to say about that. Second, our legacy as Lake Stevens has been a part-time mayor and a full-time administrator. Currently, that's Jean Basil. Now, I will tell you, I bear no angst against Jean. I bear no angst against Brett. What I'm going to say next is purely about the position and the legacy of what Lake Stevens has come through to current. And that is part-time mayor, full-time administrator. Brian, you brought up the comment at our last meeting of, well, okay, so now mayor is full-time. Does that mean administrator is going to stay full-time? And are we all in full tilt on both of them? Which, our administrator makes north of $220,000 a year plus benefits. I don't know if you all knew that, but he does. Okay. Not saying he doesn't earn it. He works hard. He does a good job. But I haven't heard any conversation about, all right, we as a city are now evolving and growing, and we've gone from part-time mayor to now full-time mayor. I haven't heard any conversation about, do we need to reevaluate whether or not we need a full-time administrator? Or like so many other cities, do we have a full-time strong mayor and we back down the duties, hours, salary of the administrator? I don't know. And quite frankly, that is beyond the purview of salary commission. However, I think one has an impact on the other. And although we have no jurisdiction on what the city does in terms of the administrator position, because I think they are interrelated, that would have been really good information for us to have. I don't think we're ever going to get it because, again, that's beyond what salary commission does. I'm just putting that out there for you because we are supposed to be thoughtful, reasonable people when we come to our decision. That is not to say that we should shortchange the mayor in any way because of the administrator, but it's an issue that I think is out there and at some point, hopefully, will come up by the powers that be. However, this is what I do know. The administrator is the number 2 in the city, and the administrator has one boss, and that's the mayor. So this is me with my pragmatic thinking going. Why don't we talk some more and come up with a number that makes sense for the mayor, and then there's a couple of the different ways I think we can structure this that might make sense. Because we don't know what annual revenues are going to be. One way, or one of two ways, might be that if the annual revenues decrease by 10% or more in any calendar year due to economic downturn, that shortfall or that reduction in revenue is made up or paid from reducing the mayor's salary of up to 30% in that calendar year where there's the shortfall, before there would be cutting of any funding to our community programs. Okay, chew on that a little bit. I'm going to say it again. If our annual revenues decrease by 10% or more in any calendar year due to economic downturn, that shortfall, whatever that number is, that reduction in revenue, comes from the mayor's salary up to 30% of his salary or her salary before there is the cutting of any funding to any community programs. I think that does two things all at once. Number one, it seats the responsibility for leadership right where it belongs with the mayor, because the mayor is in charge of the city staff, all of it. The mayor is greatly helped by the administrator, but the two of them together, all of the city staff answer to them. And I believe that gives them an impetus to be accountable and have transparency so that our budgets don't get out of line and crazy, and we don't hit that dip under our reserve sooner than we should. And in fact, maybe it would cause actions that put into play a scenario where we don't even get close to that dip under the reserve. So that's one of my thoughts. The other thought is, what if we pick a salary, a decent salary, we reevaluate, we adjust, and we lock that amount for somewhere between 6 and 10 years, so that dollar number cannot be changed without a vote of the people. That way we know our mayor is going to be working for us, doing a great job, which I would have the expectation that no matter who is in the office would want to honor the city by doing a great job. And it makes sure that we don't have any runaway voices in terms of, well, my friend is now the mayor, so let's make the salary 200,000. Yeah, it's a crazy example, but you understand what I'm saying. Okay. So, having said that, what do you think about either one of those 2 points? Do you think that you could agree to that so that we could, by acting in good faith, extending out, having expectation that they're going to do a great job, but we set the salary quite a bit higher than what we had originally done, that we build this in for accountability?
So if I could, I just want to add a piece. I'm going to read to you a piece of the code just for your consideration, is that the salary decreases. So if you were to go with your option 1, salary decreases established by the commission shall be effective as to incumbent city elected officials at the commencement of their next subsequent term of office. So if you were to do a decrease, it wouldn't take effect until the next term of that person in office per the code.
For the calendar year or the
No,
next?
the next term.
Because the term
of
is
office.
2 years.
The next term of office.
So you couldn't take anything until there was a change in term,
Correct.
essentially. Okay.
The other thing though, I mean, with option number 2, I don't mean to downplay the options. I think you've got some ideas and stuff, but the commission has to meet every year per the code. So just not sure like a way around that per se, but just food for thought, review the code before making the decisions, of course.
Well, as to the locked in period,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we meet every year and we say, yep, that's what we agreed to.
Keep it locked in. COLA increase for everybody else.
But,
So,
okay, so I was trying to come up with a way to allow for accountability. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, you go to council meetings, you hear public comment, and that's what people are screaming for over and over and over again, is they want transparency and they want accountability instead of you know, runaway actions or expenses or costs.
so Commissioner Hampton, can I chime in here?
Sure.
So I like both things, I think, for accountability, but I think there's some inherent issues with both of them. You know, in talking with the city manager, you know, city administrator, and understanding the scope. So as he changes the city, going to a full-time mayor is one step, but for the load of work that's under this city right now and our elected officials and our, you know, city administrator right now is it's pretty deep, right? There's a lot going on. And I think by either getting rid of a city administrator or reducing his role greatly is just going to increase our legal fees tenfold, because a lot of the work he's doing is work you would have to pay either a lawyer or a paralegal to do. He's getting it ready to be approved by the city attorney, things of that nature. So that would take the mayor completely out of his community outreach, you know, other issues with serving on transportation boards, et cetera, mayor councils, things like that. He wouldn't be able to have that. He wouldn't have the capacity. So I don't think, you know, if anything, we could look at, are we overpaying the city manager now that we have a full-time mayor? I think that's a question should be asked by somebody. But as far as, you know, if the mayor's not doing a good job, the voters are going to determine that and let him know that, right, when it comes time to change his term. So I think looking objectively and looking at the numbers we're provided today, I'm ready to move towards recommending a salary of 108 to 110,000. You know, if we took everybody's conversation into consideration tonight, we land right about 105, 108 if you average it out. So I think that's a fair thing that we can vote on now, my opinion, that we don't have to wait and have another meeting. But I do think it may be a recommendation of the commission to now go ahead and let's review how many responsibilities has a full-time mayor taken away from a city administrator, and does that affect the city administrator's salary? Is that 220,000 number you threw out earlier, does that include overtime because he's trying to get things done? You know, I'm not sure how it works, so forgive me for that. But, you know, my opinion would be that the range we're putting at the mayor is something we can vote on tonight. We didn't have enough information to make a good decision that was provided to us before. We have it now. I think just by consensus, we all came at around the same number based on the new material that we were given. And we certainly want our mayor to be paid, you know, on par with not only other cities of like size, but we also want, you know, to recognize his responsibility. You know, the hours worked is kind of a personal choice, honestly. You know, that's something we can't project for a future mayor. I think everybody agrees on that. So I think looking at just the role and responsibility and looking at other city salaries, you know, your head of public works, the city administrator and so forth, I don't think that is out of line for a salary range for our mayor being a first-time full-time mayor for the city. So I'd be comfortable moving that forward, but I do hear you. Accountability metrics, that's up to voters, right? I mean, we have to hold the mayor accountable, and his job is to make sure that the city and the citizens know what he's up to. You know, I think you're going to see a big change in the next couple of years. Just a lot more attendance in the city council meetings, a lot more people talking about it. There's going to be a lot more, you know, outreach by the mayor. He's going to be more involved, which is going to bring even more people visible into this role. So, and I'm not talking about, you know, people are going to be keyboard warriors and go crazy on their internet and, you know, some of the groups that are out there on Facebook and so forth. I'm talking about, you know, professionally run city. So, you know, whether or not he was elected part-time, going to full-time, the decision has been made to go to full-time. I think we all agree we need a full-time mayor based on the material we have. It's just coming up with a correction based on new information to where we arrived at earlier at 80,000. So I'm comfortable moving forward to give that notification and motion for that raise to bring him up to that level that we'd agree on. But I do think we need to take a look at, you know, not eliminating city manager. I think there's a big need for it, but are there roles and responsibilities that maybe some of the money could be shifted from that role to the mayor's salary position?
Yeah, well, there are other things about his contract that you may not be privy to. it would really be a hornet's nest, let me tell you.
Yeah,
Um,
so it may not be feasible.
Pardon?
It may not be feasible to try and lower his salary.
Well, and that, I just add is that's not our role, is it?
No,
Am I?
no, I was just suggesting someone should look into it, Commissioner Bennett.
Sure. Okay.
Not our role.
Understood. Okay. Commissioner Hampton, thank you for that. Those are very thoughtful, thoughtful perspectives. It made me open my mind up a bit. So appreciate it. I would echo Commissioner McManus. I think that I'm a little leery of locking in. My sense would be that might not be a prudent thing for us to do right now. And then I guess, can I just ask for clarification on if we were to decrease, that would take effect at what point? What was that?
Apparently, yeah, Ms. Anya was saying, according to the code, any decrease would not be effective until the following term. So it may actually affect a person who had no involvement in it. So that doesn't work.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ford, Dixie, anybody?
Yeah, I have a thought. I mean, it's kind of different than what you're proposing, but maybe something to consider is maybe setting a salary that might be slightly lower with incentives built into it. So kind of gets to the same place in a different way, which is rather than looking at it from a punitive perspective of revenue or whatever, but if the mayor has the ability to affect business activity, maybe you set a salary that's slightly a step below, but it has the possibility for step up if specific targets are hit.
Like, for example?
Like, for example, well, maybe there's a revenue, I don't know some of the inner workings of what the metrics would be, but assuming, positive revenue growth or tax growth or whatever the case might be, where you say, we'll set it at 95, but you have the potential to hit 120 if, these specific things are achieved that are, that would positively infect or impact the city or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I like that.
For example, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say, I like that. I think the challenge there or the can of worms you're gonna open is deciding on what those incentives metrics look like, right? Council will have their thoughts, we'll have our thoughts, and everybody in Lake Stevens will have a completely different thought that we come up with. So might be tough to get that tiger in a cage.
I don't think I have enough of a perspective to really say exactly what that is, but I think the idea is that maybe you set salary slightly lower than the average we're talking about, and maybe you give the opportunity for that to be increased if specific things, positive things happen, to be determined what that would be. But I think it also kind of puts it in place that maybe you're not putting all that money up front hoping for the best and then trying to claw it back. You kind of say maybe there's an in between, and if good things happen, then that increases, and that's good for everybody.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I like that thought. A lot of employment contracts do that tranching to get you to the next level, but we would have to clearly identify what that would be. And I think that would be a little beyond our scope at this point. I wish it weren't, but I believe it is. But
So
I like your idea. That was
Yeah,
good.
I think it's a great idea. I think it would be great to put that metric into everybody who held office in America. That would be really fun to see that happen. But
Right.
utopia doesn't exist, right? So I think for the salary, if we are definitely in the 100 to 110 range, and we just have to agree as a commission what's acceptable. Because I think honestly, anything less than that drops him below the average low of the cities in comparison that we're looking at. So taking out complexity of the city, all that stuff, just raw numbers. I think the low that they gave us was 108 and the high they gave us was 142, right? So I think anywhere between 100 and 110 is good for, a first year full-time mayor transitioning from a part-time role. And then, we do have the ability, we won't have the ability to lower the figure that we're going to talk about tonight, but we do have the ability to leave it flat. If no raise, if things aren't going well, or the Costco didn't go in, the economy didn't turn, we didn't get what we needed, and the city's getting into financial trouble, we can leave it flat. So, it's just like we vote on the COLA increases for city council, we can leave those flat each year too if we wanted to. It's just a matter of what makes sense at the time when we reconvene.
Right. As I understand it, the mayor is a 2-year term, and I'm thinking we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have another election next year?
It's this year.
It's this year. It's the end of this year. Okay. So here's the risk that we run. If in fact the current mayor does a great job, and so we get together October, November, and we say, wow, great job, lots of good things happening. Let's bump up that salary a little bit more because we believe that it's reasonable and well earned. And let's say the mayor runs for re-election and doesn't win. Now we've got a new mayor reaping the benefit of the hard work of the mayor prior. I wish there was a way we could align our reviews better with actually reviewing the work and the efforts of the mayor currently in the position.
Commissioner Hampton, I think that's a slippery slope, right? I hear what you're saying, but we have to, that's why I keep going back to, we need to set the salary band for the role, not for the individual who's in it, right? Because to your point, so I think that's what we're getting at tonight is we've got the information. I think we have the information to move forward with a figure and vote on it tonight. I may be alone in that thought process, but based on everything we've been given, unless someone needs some more time to kind of digest things, I know Ford, you're kind of new to the role, so that may be the case, and we're happy to meet again. But when you look at the role and the information we've been given, the comparisons, aside from the PowerPoint presentation, all the good things that have been done, all the good things that might happen, we could still come back to this same figure based on the financials we've been given at this point, right? And to your point, no one has a crystal ball. And no one has a crystal ball to say the mayor is going to continue working 60, 70 hours a week either. There's no one can project those types of things. So I think we have to be very careful to focus on setting the salary for the role, not for the individual.
Absolutely agreed. Point well taken. The only point I was making was that if we are encouraged by what has occurred and we increase that amount, like we all talked about, we have the ability to do as we review each year, then we would be rewarding the next person instead of the one that caused us to be encouraged to raise the amount. That's the only point I was making. But baseline, yes, we need to set the salary for the position, not the person.
Yeah, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's anything that precludes us from waiting till the election to meet to determine any raise or change in the mayor's salary. Is there anything in the bylaws that say against that? Or?
Well, we typically meet the third quarter of the year, just because what we do takes effect January 1 of the following year. So I don't think we would be precluded from meeting additional times or different times.
Yeah, so it may be, Commissioner Hampton, that we have our meeting like we did this year in November, and we don't make a decision until December, right? So that would be post-election.
Yeah, we could do that. We could lay the groundwork and take everything under advisement, continue to cogitate on all of the information provided, and then make a decision in December. Yes, we could, as long as we do it in such a manner that whatever needs to be filed with the local authorities can be done in a timely fashion.
Right. And that's why I think if we keep reviewing the numbers we have today for the role, right? And again, not the person, but for the role of mayor, and we're looking at these comps from other cities, and we're looking at the internal financials, obviously city salaries are going to continue to climb, for public works and these other ones. So you would think that, either COLA or whatever, there's going to be increases along the way. These numbers are going to change up, and hopefully our tax revenue numbers will go up over the next few years, right? So setting it at somewhere between 100 and 110 now, that holds us through the end of this year, and then there's new election. There's nothing that says we have to, increase the salary the following year right away. I mean, we could meet whenever we want and enact a new salary. we've done it when
Yeah.
we went from part-time to a full-time mayor.
Right, right. That's true. We could always call a special meeting, give proper notice. That's true.
Yep.
Okay, so do we want to reevaluate, adjust, and take a vote? Why don't, okay, so Brian, you are at 100 to 110 or 105 to 110, right in there?
Yeah, I think a good hard number based on everybody's input and kind of the projections everybody gave would be 108. That would be my input.
Okay, Dixie, you were at 105, correct?
I was roughly between 105, 110. So
Okay.
I would voice, Commissioner McManus's as well, and I would recommend the 108 as well.
All right, Carolyn, what do you think?
I had stated 100
Right.
flat, and I would like to revise to 110.
Okay, Ford, what do you think?
I'm right there. Maybe I'm splitting it down the middle, but yeah, I think 108 is right in that average range, and that sounds right.
Okay,
Commissioner Hampton, what do you think?
thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
I think I'm with you. I think 1 to 110 is probably a really safe, reasonable place to land. And it looks like right now we have 3 votes for 108, 1 vote for 110. We could split the difference and go 109.
Yeah, I think that puts us in a good spot at 108 personally, and that gives us some room, to I think to afford. We Fritz put in earlier. We don't have that projection piece, right? And it'd be great if we did, but that's part of the challenge of this role that we have, and we've all volunteered for, right? So
Right.
I think the 108, I'm kind of stuck on that number only because it puts us right at or above some of the comparable cities that we've looked at.
Okay, well, I'm willing to go with 108. Carolyn, are you willing to settle at 108?
I am willing to settle at 108, yes.
I know it's a tough sell.
Thanks.
I think
It's a hard thing to come to, but thank you.
I think we've all reviewed as well as we could, and so well done, I think, Commission.
All right,
Good
so
job.
it looks like our all-in is going to be, and nothing is set in stone yet because no one's given me a motion a second, and we haven't voted. I'm just having a conversation here.
I'll make a motion to increase the mayor's salary to $108,000 plus benefits applied by city council, applicable to normal city benefits for all city employees.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, second by Dixie. All right, we have a motion to increase the mayor's salary to 108,000 plus benefits as set by the city council. And my FYI is those tend to run about 40%. So all in, we're probably around 150 plus or minus a couple thousand.
That's accurate.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, and any further discussion?
No.
No. Okay, so let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Hearing none. Motion passes. Okay.
Good job, everybody.
Good job. Good job, everyone. We got through it. This was tough.
Ford, you crushed your first meeting, buddy. Nice job.
No idea what to expect.
Well, like
Welcome
I said,
aboard.
welcome to the frying pan. This is probably one of the roughest meetings that you'll have to be a part of. So, and we all got through it without throwing knives. So well done.
We're a pretty intimidating group, I must add.
Commissioner Hampton, Gary
yes.
Peter Sagan here, Lake Stevens City Council. If I might, before you adjourn, just make a couple of comments, if I could do that.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you folks for doing some extra work here. As you've all discussed, it's been a little bit of a challenge trying to get to a number. So I do appreciate you putting in the extra effort, and thank you for that. Having attended the last salary commission meeting, I just wanted to clarify something in regards to this ordinance 1107 that's been a big discussion point. And as far as the city council, our discussions as a full-time mayor go back into the late September, October, and there was quite a bit of discussion, consternation, differing viewpoints and so forth as to how we get there. And then of course the secondary part was that how do we compensate someone? So I want to apologize. It was not to be meant to offend the salary commission as to taking that duty away from you folks. It was merely a discussion point that what would that potentially look like? So I just kind of wanted to clear some things up because just looking through the minutes and so forth, there was a fair amount of discussion about slighting or offending the commission, and that was not the intent at all. It was 1107 was kind of the outcome of an impasse, and we wanted to look at what potential solutions or avenues could look like. So please don't take any offense to that. We weren't trying to slight you at the least. And again, I just kind of wanted to clarify that so that you folks can move forward. We appreciate your work. And like I say, you've done some extra credit here tonight, being an hour and 15 minutes. So with that, hopefully that clears that up a little bit. I do want to mention, I think you mentioned that the mayor was up for election here this fall. The mayor's term is a 4-year term. He served his first year. He has 3 more years to go. So just point of clarification. So
Appreciate that, Gary. Thank you.
thank you for allowing me to speak. And again, thank you to everyone for serving.
Thank you, Councilmember Peter Sagan.
Mhm. Yeah, we do appreciate your comments, especially the clarification on 1107, because it did, let's just say it hit us in the wrong way. It really seemed like smacking our heads into a brick wall. So thank you for that clarification. Very much. All right, so that is the business that we have to conclude. I would like to suggest one other item before we adjourn. And that is that in light of all the discussion that we've had about finances and salaries and who's doing what, I would like it, but I will do nothing, of course, without a vote of the whole commission. If we could somehow put in a recommendation to council that they might look at, have a discussion about how our city is going to function with a full-time mayor and a full-time administrator, and have them at least have a discussion about whether or not that needs some kind of realignment or adjustment or not. Ultimately, it's up to the city council. I understand that. But I think that kind of a conversation, because things are growing and changing, might be healthy. And so your input on that as to whether or not we ask to give that recommendation to council? What do you think?
You're asking our opinion on this, our
Yeah.
input?
Because we would be doing this as a commission, saying, would you please take a look at this?
I just, from my perspective, I had not, even after listening, to your input tonight, Commissioner Hampton, I had not considered anything to that, in that regard. My understanding was that staff salaries, were kind of not in our role was not to evaluate those, or so I didn't even go beyond evaluation. I didn't think about correlation or adjusting of the city administrator's role or salary. So I guess my input would be not to. That's just my sense and my perspective. I'd be interested to hear what everyone else, what their opinion is on that. But I guess I just hadn't gone there. My thought process hadn't gone there. So, but maybe if you could elaborate, maybe just a tad more, that
Sure.
might help.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that it is within our realm. I'm
Mhm.
suggesting that it is within the realm of city council. And if they would have a conversation amongst themselves and with the powers that be as to whether or not we continue on with a full-time administrator and mayor, or have a discussion about whether that needs realignment or adjustment. I'm simply, the suggestion would be from us as a commission to just please have that conversation. We would have nothing to do with the outcome because that is beyond what we do. But just to let them know that we're aware, and that might be a fruitful conversation. They may decide to do nothing, but the exercise might be very beneficial in light of everything that's going on.
Yeah, Commissioner Hampton, I hear what you're saying, but I hear what Commissioner Bennett's saying as well, right? It is out of scope for us. Now, I would think that actually, Councilman Peter Shagan's on, so he's hearing this, right? I would think that the council would have done their due diligence and looked at that before they even decided to go to a full-time mayor role. I hope that was part of the consideration, if you will, as having basically a dual position there, if you will. So I'm trusting that they did that. I think anything that we send to them, it might make us feel better at the end of the day, but probably an act of futility at the end of the day as well. I mean, Gene's Brazil is very highly regarded. I'm sure other cities would love to grab him up in a heartbeat if we couldn't come to terms with him. So I think he's a pretty integral part of this city, and having my discussions with him. So I think at this point, it's noted, it's in our minutes that we were looking at that. But I think that's really something that belongs in the purview of city council and the mayor to kind of review those things. It is like, his scope of responsibility to make sure that his employees are not only getting paid what they're deserved, but also to rein in the costs and budget for the city. So it might make us feel good to send something like that up just to ask the question, but honestly, I think it would be a waste of our time at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And I also agree with Commissioner Bennett, Commissioner McManus. I don't think that it's within our scope at this time. I don't think that asking them to do that when the mayor just took on a full-time position itself, not sure if the community needs both a full-time mayor as well as the administrator. That's not something that's going to be known or even be able to be analyzed until he's completed at least a year as a full-time mayor. I think that
True.
the commission, I would assume, did do their due diligence when coming up with this full-time position and took that into consideration. And if they didn't, and if that's something that still is heavy on our minds and our thoughts, then that be something we bring to them at our next year's commission meeting. Because we will have seen kind of what the mayor has done over a period of a year. And we could look at that and revisit that recommendation at that time.
And I would, go ahead, Commissioner Hampton.
Oh, no, I was just calling on you to go ahead and give your thoughts.
I was going to say, you could tell I was going to say something. Maybe this is kind of another way of kind of reiterating some of these things that were said, is that maybe I'm oversimplifying, but the reason the mayor's position was brought to a full-time position was because it was believed it was impactful to the city and that there was benefit to doing it. So I don't know if it's necessarily there's only so much compensation to go around and we have to figure out how we split it between two people. I would assume that the council stepped up the mayor because there was a benefit overall for doing it. So I don't know, maybe that's kind of an oversimplistic way to look at it, but I'm assuming what he brings to the table will should compensate or make up for what that cost is.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear. There will be no recommendation. It was just a thought anyway.
It was a good idea, Carolyn.
Absolutely.
Public hearing.
Oh, okay. So Ms. Anya is telling us that we need to set a public hearing because now we have reevaluated and changed the magic number for the mayor's salary. So we have to do what we did last time over again. And do you have a date in mind?
So the code says it has to be conducted within 30 days before filing, but I know Kelly, if she's still around, needs notice. She has to put in the paper and give notice, I think a 10-day notice.
Yep.
Kind of like a sweet spot we have to figure out, probably at least 2 weeks out, but not more than 4 weeks out. So.
What about February 4th? That's 2 weeks out from today.
Kelly, when's the soonest you can get in the paper? Actually, that's a better question.
Yeah, let me look here at my dates. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, if I got it out tomorrow or Saturday, that'll give us, and then the paper needs a couple day lead time. We'd be right there on February 4th.
Is that cutting it too close, Kelly? Should we push it maybe to the following week since we have that availability?
One.
I just want to make sure you get enough time and aren't rushed.
Yeah, no, it doesn't take much time on my end. So totally up to you guys. I mean,
Okay.
February 11th could be another date and we're still within that 30 days. It's up to the commission. Thank you for the consideration, but it doesn't take me long.
I would prefer February 11th if no one has any objection.
Actually, I have jury duty, so I might not be able to make that one. See, I'm just crushing it civically this year. Massive. Yeah, so the previous week would be better for me. Or, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that week, 8th, 9th, or 10th.
Okay. Anybody else? What does your calendars look like?
The 9th is a city council meeting, so I would refrain from that evening with our Zoom capabilities, but 8th or the 10th.
The 10th
about-
works great for me.
Yeah, 10th is better for me.
10th it is.
Okay.
At 5 o'clock?
February 10th.
Oh, you want 5 o'clock start time, or did you guys like the 4 o'clock start time better?
I can't do a 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 o'clock's fine.
Okay.
5 o'clock. All
Yeah.
right,
Either
February.
way, you're cutting into beer drinking time, so it doesn't matter really, 4 or 5.
I'll make sure I tell my CEO that I have to be off by 4 because I have beer drinking time.
That's right. And if he's a good guy, he's gonna go, where are we going?
That's probably what he would say. Yeah.
All right, so our public hearing has been set for February 10, 2021 at 5 p.m. Zoom. For any other business? Hearing none. If we would like to adjourn, I will need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Carolyn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? Hearing none. Motion is passed. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good job.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome to the team, Ford.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I could be here.
Thanks, Dixie. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks.
Bye.
guys.
Anya,
Good night.
thanks, Kelly.
Bye.
Good night.